All right, so in this video, we're going to look at negative launch angles. Okay? So the main difference between this and when you launch it at an angle, an upward angle, is that your VOX, or excuse me, your VOY is going to be negative. Okay? So this would be like throwing it down in free fall instead of throwing it up versus dropping it, right? But again, follow the steps, right? Step one, break up your vector. So it's going to be an object slides in off an inclined roof. The angle shown is 37 degrees with 5 meters per second at 3 meters above the ground. Doesn't be 3 meters. Find its horizontal distance in the air and the final velocity, which is the magnitude and direction on the ground, okay, or when it hits the ground. So VOX equals VO cosine theta, so it's going to be 5 cosine 37, and we've been working with this 3, 4, 5 triangle. And so you got 5 sine 37, and again, this will be negative. All right, so it's going to be negative 3. Do our horizontal vertical, position. So it's going to be x equals 4t, and it's going to be y equals, and we'll just say 3 meters plus. This would be a minus because it's in a negative launch angle, right? So 3 meters, 3 minus 3t minus 5t squared. And I apologize if I'm going back and forth between negative 9.8 and 10. Okay. So now we need to find the time it takes to get to the ground. That's going to be on our height side. So again, we're going to use the quadratic equation. So t equals negative b, so negative 3, plus or minus the square root of negative b squared, minus 4 times a times c, divided by 2 times negative a, or 2 times a, right? And so we plug that into our calculator. So negative 3 plus the square root of negative 3 squared minus 4 times negative 5 times 3 divided by negative 10. Okay, and so this is going to be negative 1.131. Okay, and then we go back in and plug in a minus sign. This will end up being positive 0.5307 seconds. Disregard the negative number, so our answer for time will be 0.5307. Take that, remember time is the only thing that can cross the barrier. So x equals 4 times 0.5307. And we find it has a range of, or a horizontal distance of 2.123 meters, okay? So it's going to land 2.123 meters where it leaves the roof, okay? So now we got to find the components of the velocity. Well, x is always easy, right? So this over here is part A. X is always easy because it's always the same thing, so it's going to be 4 meters per second. Vy is going to be our VOY minus 10t. Okay, and our VOY was negative 3 minus 10 times 0.5307. And so that's going to be negative 3 minus 10 times 0.5307. That's going to be negative 8.307 meters per second. Now we find the magnitude. We're just going to do Pythagorean theorem. 4 squared plus negative 8.307 squared. Okay, Okay, so it's going to be v equals the square root of 16 plus 8.307 squared. And so it's going to be a magnitude of 9.922. And again, to find the angle, we're going to do inverse tangent of our y value. So in this case, it would be 8.307 over our x value, which would be 4. So negative 8.307 divided by 4. Oh, forget the 4. Divided by 4. And that's going to be an angle of negative 64.3 degrees. Okay, the negative sign just means that it's impacting the ground down and to the right. Okay, so there's our part B. All right. The next example, talking about we're going to throw an object from a roof. Okay, 50 meters per second, directed at 53 degrees below the horizontal. It covers the distance of 80 meters while in the air. Then we'll find the time of flight and the final velocity. Again, nothing changes, right? So VOX equals VO cosine theta, VOY equals VO, in this case, negative VO sine theta. So we're going to do 50 cosine 53, negative 50 sine 53. So this will be 30 meters per second. This will be negative 40 meters per second. All right, write our functions, HB. So this will be x equals 30t. And in fact, they don't give us the height here. So it's going to be y equals y0 minus 40t minus 5t squared. So we have to go and do a little bit of a calculation to figure out the height, or we have to use just a different formula, which isn't bad. I mean, we can figure that out. Okay, or we have to find that height, and so we're going to do x equals 30t to find our time of flight. So we need x over 30. It's going to be 80. All right, because it tells us 80 over 30. So our time will be 2.7 seconds. So that's our answer to part A. And so now we need to just figure out the velocity. Oh, we don't need to worry about the height because we have the time. All right, so Vx is just going to be 30. Vy is going to be VOY minus 10t. So it's going to be negative 40 minus 10 times 2.7. So that's going to be negative 67 meters per second, because this is 27. Okay, and then find the magnitude, the square root of 30 squared plus negative 67 squared. And so that's going to be the square root of 30 squared plus 67 squared. So 73.4 meters per second. That's our magnitude. Now to find the angle, we're going to do, again, inverse tangent of our y value over our x value. So negative 60, inverse tangent of negative 67 divided by 30. And that's going to give us an angle of negative 65.9 degrees. Again, it's going to be negative because we're impacting the ground down and to the right. Okay? And that's how all these, if it's coming down, that's what it'll always be. Okay, so we have one more video left to do, and that's when we go from ground to a height.